This is the Out the Boks Rugby podcast, only on Megafoon Rugby.
Welcome back to the Out the Boks Rugby podcast at last. And I must be honest, this is one of the videos I've been looking forward to the most. André, no pressure, but I mean, this past game against the French was one for the ages, wasn't it?
Envy, great to be back. Great to see you. And it definitely was one for the ages. And, you know, despite the magnitude of the game, I think, and we'll go through the clips and go through the game, but it just never felt like we were going to lose it.
Something interesting you said to me while we were discussing and planning for this video, you said to me the Springboks already decided this past Monday, a week before the game, that they were never going to lose this one. You know, they had 14 men at one stage, a red card and everything else. Why would that be? What would you ascribe that to?
I think the first thing we need to do is just give it the right label in terms of there's a difference to play to win and there's a difference to play not to lose. And I think the French came out in the game wanting to really win this game, wanting to put that quarterfinal to bed, bury the old demons. And, you know, things were going their way. But as the game wore on, and we'll see why, you know, they started playing not to lose. And when you play not to lose, anxiety, fear, etc. sets in. And you go off your processes and a mistake becomes bigger than it's supposed to be. Whereas with the Springboks, what I mean by they've decided on Monday already, it's the way you prepare. It's the way you walk out of that Monday meeting, knowing, not arrogance, just knowing we're going to win this test match. We've got the plan, we've got the players, we've got the mindset. If we pitch up and as a collective, it's our best day. Our best is better than their best. And they needed the crowd. They needed a couple of lucky bounces, a couple of mistakes from the Springboks, which inevitably did happen, and it did lead to tries or try. But I truly believe they walked out of that Monday meeting knowing that they were going to win this test. It was just a matter of ensuring that, you know, nothing cynical happens or they don't get into, you know, probably too many red cards. You know, that red card of Lewitt ended up not hurting us too much, but it's because of this group's character and the way this group is put together by Rassie. Rassie's got that way to play or to talk to the player's heart and to his head.
The word that jumped out there, and you sort of, confirmed it, is mindset. And this past week, Gerike was quoted in an article, and he was with the Springboks from 2004, 2007. I'm going to ask you about him just now. But he said he has got a lot of the Springbok success to their mindset and the fact that they've got external influences. Tony Brown, who's a Kiwi, Felix Jones, who's from Ireland, Jerry, who's from Ireland, and everything else. This diverse team. But I mean, you can have all the talent in the world, but not being able to put it together, it doesn't mean anything. So how does that work? What is the difference between this Springbok mindset? Because in the past, we still had very good Springboks. I mean, the time of John de Villiers playing, Victor Matford, those were generational players. Yet they never reached the heights that this team has reached. What is the difference, do you think, between those teams and this team?
Well, it's difficult to say because I'm not part of in the inner circle with this team. But what I can tell you is stuff that I see, and I see care. I see a lot of care in there. And Juan Venter is a really good example of that. And what I mean by that is, at 30 minutes, he gets taken off in probably the biggest game he's ever played in. And a lot of newbies or guys wanting to make their mark would come off after the game. In a toxic culture, they'd sit in groups and say, listen, I can't believe the coach took you off. Yet, Juan was celebrating with the guys on the side. And what it felt like to me was Rassie putting his hand around him and saying, listen, you've had enough for today. I've exposed you to this intensity. I'm going to protect you, and I'm going to get the experienced guy on to take us from there. So that in essence is what's been created over there. You know, they're exposing guys, they're giving guys opportunities, and they're creating like I always say, they're creating really expensive jerseys. This rotation, show me another team in international rugby that can rotate as much as we do, because Rassie trusts them. And he knows that when they go onto the field, that jersey is not a permanent. You're not cemented into that position. And there's bigger games where certain guys will be picked. Of course, that's true. But when you're playing in that jersey, your battle rate will be evaluated. Your peers will look at you and go, was that your best in a Springbok jersey? And that, as a collective, has brought the Springbok team into the type of team that they are now, where they go down to 14 men and it's just seamless. It's they still scrum well. I hear people say that the scrums weren't that dominant, and if you look at it with the amount of numbers they had and the way they went at it, it was so seamless because they prepare well, they care for each other, and that jersey is expensive.
That preparing well thing, I mean, that sort of tickles me. I know you do scenario planning. So, okay, we're going to have this guy off. How are we going to respond? But how can you prepare for all eventualities? I mean, how does it work? How do you work it out? I mean, you don't have so much time. So many training sessions, and I know you're traveling together and everything else. But I mean, there must be limitations to it. And, you can only plan for this or that. I mean, something else in the middle happens. How do they deal with that?
That's true. And you can't prepare for everything. But I think what the scenario planning also does, it doesn't give you the answer to the specific problem. But what it does is it gives you that process when it happens, how to deal with it. It's calm. You feel like, oh, it might be a different number than in training, but this is what we're going to do. It's not like you're alone. The coaches are on top. They can come in with a bird's eye view and say, listen, this is what we want to do. Off the scrums, do you need an extra player? Most teams need to go and put their wing or inside center in the scrums. South Africa can afford not to have 8 men in the scrum, which is a huge bonus for your defense on the in the back. So I think it's more a case of when you do it, it's not everybody talking at once. There's a collective process where we go, right, boys, what's the problem? What's causing it? And how do we fix it? When it's a card, who's off? Right, this is what we planned. Okay, it's not the same number, but there's one guy talking, taking responsibility for that. And then you get leaders coming in with suggestions, and then from there, decision made, everybody commits and we go forth. So I think the part of the planning is more for that process to take place in a calm environment instead of guys losing their heads and making, rash decisions.
Just before we move on to the clips to see what the Springboks did so well, and I think we decided this video is going to focus on what the Springboks did so well. I mean, this for me was the game of the year, even though I slept through it. So the point I'm trying to make is, you talked about that jersey being expensive. I want to talk to you about the Italy team, the team selected for Italy just after we finished this recording, because just before we went on air, they announced the team. And there you can see, suddenly the lock pairing is different. Franco Mossad and Jean Klein. Marco at 8. There's no hooker on the reserve hooker on the bench. And lots of things that to just briefly touch on maybe later in this video. So we are going to talk about that. But for now, let's focus on what did Springboks did so well in this game against France. Because like you said, there's one for the ages.
It's so easy after the losses to go and find mistakes and, have your hindsight glasses on and say, they should have done this, they should have done that. But really, do we go into a match going, well, this is why they weren't going to lose this match. And that's what I want to get across. And at times we made a really good French side, and a well-coached French side looked really mediocre and took away some big attacking threats of theirs. And with their defense, the tries that they conceded, Shaun Edwards would never be happy about that, although he's just talking about the dummies. But there's a lot of other pressure. The pressure got to them, and that's why they failed in certain events.
That's an interesting point. Sorry, before we go on, you talked about pressure. We were worried about the pressure of the Springboks playing in France against a very partisan crowd. You know, the director sort of replays all the mistakes the Springboks made and sweeps the French stuff under the carpet. Lots of pressure, lots of expectations. And yet the French seems to have succumbed to the pressure more than the Springboks have.
Well, you've said it numerous times that the Bulls at Loftus is under more pressure than they are playing away, you know, and the French had this expectation and they started well. So everything was going their way. So when it started not going their way, it's like they didn't know how to handle it. And couple that with ruck pressure that I haven't seen from the Springboks for a long, but consistent ruck pressure, not just every third ruck, consistent 15 guys. Whenever there's an opportunity, there's guys over the ball, there's guys trying to counter ruck, put pressure on the 9. And we'll see in the one clip how it actually changes the French attack shape with their 5-man pod. And then guys that need to come in and secure the ball. And that's another threat that the South Africans, the Springboks have created. It's 15 jacklers. Doesn't matter which numbers on your back. It's not just 6, 2, 8, and 12 that's going to contest at the breakdown. When the ball's going down and it's a 1, a 5, or a 7, doesn't matter. Over the ball, contest the breakdown, slow their ruck ball, and you can see the advantage to that with the slow ball that the French got.
That's so interesting. Because I'm one of those guys, I often see people say, stop kicking, but we won 2 World Cups because we're good at kicking. And now suddenly where's a fetcher? Where's no fetcher in this team? But because there's 15 fetchers in the team, so yeah, us newbies, what do you call us? Ignoramai, I suppose.
I didn't know what the collective noun was for that.
Yeah, well, there you go. So I remember from when I grew up in the 80s, that was, you had to have a fetcher. Where's our André Pretorius? There you go. We give you 15 of them. So anyway, I digress.
Right, let's have a look at how good the Springboks were. KMB, I think I would just like to kind of jump on the Sacha train, if I may, just to show the quality he brings to the side in terms of all disciplines in the game. So it's not just on the attack side, not just on the kicking side, but he gets involved in a lot of facets of the game. So if we start with this game against Japan, and obviously these are just highlights, and it's visually, more pleasing than the others, but that's a great finish against some good defenders from Japan. You still need to make that run, score that try.
And get it down before the line.
And get it down before. That was a bit close, I agree. So this is the one where he intercepts, and if we look at it from the back, if Leach gets this ball, he scores. But Sacha makes a great read on the edge, and he gets in between that. So on defense, he's making a difference. Great cover work at the back, but it's not just the cover work, NBA. It's the way he releases the pressure with his feet. Great little step, and then the kick comes in. On this one, now what's interesting about this is in the corner here, you'll see Intermac is going to drop. Now, normally when a team gets the ball on this one, it's a kick immediately. Sacha, he sees the fact that Intermac is dropping back, and then instead just puts it in between, and now he's pulling him back into that, making that a contestable, which he unfortunately we got the knock on there, but just his thinking in that. And this is he gets involved in the rucking as well. We know the Springboks use their 10 as a rucker, so keeps Fiku off, clean ball, next one, doesn't even think twice, bridges over, ball secured. And then, his foot speaks for itself. Although he did miss a couple in this game, which I think he'd be disappointed about, but he was taking some long range ones early on in the match. That does make a difference to your stats. And then kick, and he makes that tackle. So like I said, India, it's not just he's an aerial threat. I could put a lot of clips in here, but he's a great aerial threat. And then on that, normally Ramos beats the first man, gets the offload away after the second tackle, and now the French, we nearly get that ball back. So, like I said, I just want to jump on the Sacha train for a while, just to explain that he is actually the real deal in all facets of the game. He's very physical. He's got a great distribution game. His decision making it looks calm and composed. He's a real threat going to the line with great feet, good speed. He's got a bit of weight about him. So he's the real deal. And I mean, if you take Mane, for instance, when he came on, he got charged twice. But the impressive thing for me from Mane was how he recovered off that. 2 cross kicks later, he was getting the ball into space, and then that last pass to Sacha. I think a lot of 10s would have looked either to go themselves in that position, because the ball was so quick on that reverse play that we didn't really get time to set that blind side, or the bigger long edge blind side that they wanted to play. And him and Sacha had to make do with the ball that they got there. And yet he covered those 2 French defenders and put Sacha away with that little shoulder ball, which at the end he crossed the line.
I'm going to say something that's going to make you blush now, but just to put things into context. If you say something about Sacha, you're speaking from authority, being a Springbok fly-half Formula 1 yourself, World Cup winner, come to think of it. And we started a new podcast called Rugby Unfiltered with Jan de Koning and your old mentor, Loffie Elof. And he said to me, you know what? André played like Sacha when he was younger. What do you say about that?
No, I think it's a bit of a reach. This kid is something special. He's literally got everything. And if he's got people around him that can look after him, keep his feet on the ground, and he's so well spoken.
Yeah.
When he's talking on press conference or speaking on press conferences, and he's so well spoken, he's so composed, and you just hope that he's got people around him that can, because at that age, we all tend to think we know a lot more than we do, but I just get the feeling the fact that he is part of that Springbok group means that for the next generation, he'll be able to kind of take that torch. He's a possible Springbok captain going forward. If you just look at the way he carries himself, he's an exciting player, and he's going to make some mistakes. That's going to probably cost the teams that he plays for certain games, but I think he's going to win a lot more games than he'll lose for teams.
So I'm going to say, I hope that the teams he stuffs up for is the Stormers, not the Springboks.
You can say that to Harry.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. The one thing that I am a little concerned about, and it's one of his strengths, but I suppose also one of the threats almost, is the fact that he's so physical and is a little prone to injury. Isn't that a bit of a worry?
Well, it's going to determine. Prone to injury is sometimes because of bad preparation, and then bad preparation is not guys not training. Some guys overtrain without knowing. But I think the sports science has come a long way in that, and players do a lot less of that. He is a physical player. The way he shoots out of the line off maul defense to ensure that the ball's cut off. With him in the midfield with Jesse, it's difficult to get the ball on, onto that wide edges. So, and he doesn't really use a check zone when he is blitzing off the line. So he is making contact at high speed. So I guess you can say that the probability of him getting injured with contact is high. I think as he matures, you'll start realizing that being available for the next game is a lot more important than this huge hit. You can still just make your tackle and be dominant. You don't have to fly and take all technique out of it.
Just remind me quickly, what is the check zone again?
So just before some certain times, the attacker gets the ball, you can't get him man and ball. And when that happens, it means that he's going to change direction, and you must be able to get your feet into a position to change direction with him. So then you check, you keep your feet alive, and once he changes direction, you can move into that space and then make your tackle. If you don't check, it's kind of like you just sprinting on, and all he needs to do is just move one way or the other, and you move past him. So if you don't use your check zone, it's a lot easier to beat you than it is when you slow down your feet and get into that tackle position.
You mentioned dominant tackles there now, and one of the things that you, Griffin, pointed out to me was the fact that there were so few. I think 2 on the French side, 1 on the South African side. You mentioned something about Opta being very conservative about what a dominant tackle is, but did you notice that? Do you think, if it's true, was it something that they decided to do, or did it just work out that way?
No, if I look at this, the mindset of this team, I don't think there's an area where they don't want to be dominant. You just mentioned it. Opta is very strict with their dominant tackle criteria. And I found even with our teams and the teams in Japan, you think you've made a couple and then they give you 3 or 4. So, 2 and 1 sounds very low. I think the reason for that could be that the French were trying to keep the ball alive in those close contact areas, which then nullifies that tackle as a dominant tackle, which could make a difference. But yeah, it does feel low in terms of the visual images that I got.
Just briefly remind, what's your criteria for dominant tackle, just to put it into context a bit?
Well, you definitely want to stop the momentum where it is. So he's definitely not going forward. Now, Opta is normally, you need to kind of demolish this guy for the Opta criteria to show a dominant tackle. In previous years, when I coded dominant tackles, I would code if a wing shoots out and he catches someone behind the advantage line, way behind the advantage line, but he just makes a leg tackle. I gave that as a dominant tackle because he's totally disrupted their attack, and he's won 10, 15 meters with that tackle. I gave that as a dominant. They would never give that because it's just a normal leg chop in terms of tackling. So I think for them, you're definitely you're driving the attacker backwards, and your finish is probably on top, positive, and you're disrupting the ruck after that.
Oh, I like this nerdy stuff, man. So interesting. Right, what's next?
MB, we're going to have a look at certain plays within the box defense and how they put the French under pressure. So this is from a line out, playing into that vacuum, gets a bit of yards there, but this is where the magic happens. That high edge there. Intermac was forced inside quite a lot, and it cut off that wide plays, which means that Penot and Bilbari didn't get the ball as many times as they would have liked. So we are very comfortable in leaving these. Very comfortable to leave 2 speedsters in space like this by just getting the inside to go to cut back inside. And Jesse's a big part of that. So we make them cut back once, and then for the next one, nothing out the back, and they cut back twice. And if you look at teams that's successful against the Springboks, they get into this space. They get around you and they get into this space. So if you think about the Australian test we lost, they found a way with James O'Connor and those boys to get the ball into that space. We're chasing backwards. It means that our dominant tackles in terms of getting set square off the line, we're running backwards and we're always chasing. If you're not getting around the box, you're going to be running into walls. And that's exactly what happened in this test. So we were forcing Intermac into that inside. And then what that does is now we're controlling we're controlling the attack for them. Again, back to the inside. And you can see how the French, how narrow they get. There's no system, no structure at the moment. Even on this side, we've only got 3 on the blind. They're not reloading, giving themselves a chance on the blind. And this was a tactic of theirs. Now, obviously, they scored off that little kick in the beginning. But in that quarterfinal, Dupont and those boys, when they got the ball was grubbered in behind us every single time. And that seemed to give them some reward. And for some reason, in the quarterfinal, they stopped doing that. And I thought they'd watched that game and said, listen, we need to get the ball in the back. But our coverage at the back was really good. Here's another example. They make a bit of a dent in the line. High edge, Intermac back in. And now we're in control.
Something I want to ask you while you're talking about Intermac. One of the things about when Antoine Dupont was playing was he was a playmaker. And Intermac sort of had to just, tag along and do whatever Dupont said. Was Intermac now more of a playmaker in this game than Lagarek wasn't so much? Or what was the difference? And now the fact that we would cut him off or force him to the inside, why did it work? And would it have worked if Dupont was there as well?
Dupont definitely is more of a playmaker than any of the other 9s the French have. And what that does is because he does whatever he likes, people are going to stay alive more. Your blinder's got to stay alive because he can just change direction whenever he wants. I don't think you'll see 4 guys on the blind side reloading as slow as they did if Dupont was playing, because they know he can change direction. Mm-hmm. And there he probably would have changed direction. And now Intermac has to make a lot more calls. He has to take more control. But again, the way they play is they actually play off 9 more. And when they go into that overloading the midfield rucks, they put a lot of emphasis and focus on Dupont making good decisions, putting people and being a threat himself. Where I don't think the 9s at the moment for France have that same authority over the attack as Dupont had.
You mentioned overloading the midfield rucks. You know, I talked about it on the phone as well. Just explain that quickly.
The plan they have there is to try and get your corners to become really narrow by making people make tackles continuously and very close to each other. If you make one tackle and a meter from there, you have to make another tackle, and a meter from there, you have to make another. There's 3 tackles in a row, and you kind of congesting that midfield. And then the backs, all they do is they wait for something to open up and they go wide. Get into that channel that I just showed you. Get the teams to reload back, play in behind them, or get that wide play and they're chasing on the other side. And then, then they got those speedy wings of them in space against mismatching forwards. And that's where their game takes fire. And I think with the Springboks type of defense, you don't want to, you can use that at times, but we prefer that. We prefer them going there and not going around us, because then we don't have to chase back.
Mm-hmm. Okay, sorry, I digress again, but I'm going to keep pounding you with these questions.
You keep going. We'll just keep going. Right, the next one is talk a bit about ruck pressure. Now, this is from a kick receipt. Now, it's a very common plan, this, for players to catch at the back, work into as close to the 15 meters as possible, and then go into the blind side. So they do that really well, yeah. Make some good yards. See it as well, not to be caught offside. But this is where they got it wrong. So they send one guy into the ruck against the toy, and he realizes this guy's head is on top of me, and you can actually see when he decides to counter ruck and the power that then goes through. So, and there it comes. Luit is the next guy to get in there. Luit joins, Malcolm joins, now Sia joins. Now it's just chaos. Now, if we roll this back to where the toy started that counter ruck, and we just look at the other angle, you'll see the impact it has on the French shape. So this is the point where the toy starts that counter ruck. Now you can see that's the shape. The French are in position, and now that dogfight starts. The toy, the jager, Marks, they lose one from the shape. He needs to go and have a look. They lose two from the shape. Ball shows itself. Now they've got to go back. And that's not the way they wanted to play India. They wanted to use that 5-pod, either 2 or 3 or 3 and 2. And now it's static, it's slow, and they get knocked back again. Disrupted ball. The ruck pressure was immense in this game, and that made a difference to this. Same with this one. Pressure defense, just have a look at the tackles being made. Diving, getting them on the ground, forcing them into playing where they probably didn't want to, and that just gets in their head. You know, when they think there's an opportunity, 2-3 tackles later, and you've just passed the ball over the touchline.
That you said where they, were going, they basically fell on the floor and grabbed the guy's ankles. Is that sort of an unusual thing? What do you read into that?
It's desperation, Mbia. That's desperation. You know, normally Ramos is a guy, he'll get out of that and he'll go to the next tackle and he'll get the offload away. He gets tackled there. He has to get rid of it. Then the next one, look at where Peter Steff launches from to make this tackle. Look how far away he is. He actually gets tripped.
Yeah.
Desperation. That's why I told you. I was never worried in this game, not even with the red card. They just showed enough to kind of assure you we're not going to lose. We're going to win this test.
It's not desperation so much. Desperation implies that something is wrong. It's more of a commitment, but that's not a strong enough word. Is it more of a determination almost?
It is. I call it desperation because you still haven't. You're still reaching for this victory. You're still wanting to get it, and you got to show desperation in certain parts of that, like really that determination, as you call it, is probably a better word. But that getting onto the ankles, that's a desperate tackle, because if you miss that, we're in trouble.
Yeah, I hear you. Makes sense. I'm not going to teach you English, André. Your English is better than mine. So,
all right. So again, pressure defense, and Sacha seeing a bit of space behind. Nobody going, what are you doing? Everybody just gets on with the job. Sacha makes that tackle. Have a look at Ruan Orkia makes that tackle. Pressure on the ruck. And we don't catch this cleanly, but we do get the ball back. And that would have given us a start from their 10-meter line. Now, Mbia, I'm not a ref, but I'd like your opinion on this entry from the 2.
Don't ask me about rugby rules. I'm totally biased.
We don't know anything about rugby rules. You tell me if this is from the side or not.
It's clearly from the side. I mean, blind man with a stick can see it. Yeah, exactly.
So it's a pity because I thought we did enough to get the start from the 10 meters, and he actually gave the turnover. So in that regard, the result didn't go our way, but the pressure defense was phenomenal in this game.
We were worried about the defense under Jerry Flannery. When it initially started playing out, because it's a bit different to what Jacques Nienaber did. Are you feeling comfortable with it now being back to normal? Or being as good as it used to be?
If we get the line speed up like we did against them, cut them off on the edges, and then when they do get around us, we got the scrambled defense going like we do, we won't have a problem. The problem I saw with the previous test where we got it wrong was it felt like we were looking for more connection than we were looking for line speed. The wings were sitting back. Jesse wasn't getting up as far as he did in this game. And that's, if you're not going to have that speed, then you're going to have the connection. But you can't, with speed, you can't have connection all the time. So this was a really good example of how we defend. We get high line speed, we make dominant hits, we put a lot of ruck pressure, and we get ourselves set so we can get off the line square, and we're not chasing from ruck to ruck. So it was a big improvement, but again, that the way that they showed that determination or desperation was probably the factor that played into our hands the most.
I want to ask you something else while we're on it. You talk about you're touching each other, being in contact. Harry said he noticed the Springboks playing kind of a checkerboard pattern, where they would be almost like a zigzag, still almost within touching distance of each other, but about a meter or so, 2 or 3 meters away. So they would advance in like a checkerboard. I don't know how to explain that. Did you see that?
I didn't pick that up. I've heard about that in the past, where that's got a lot to do with creating jackal opportunities, because as soon as a guy pokes his nose through, there's a guy at the back waiting for that jackal to happen. So there is definitely a tactic like that. I didn't necessarily pick that up with them. I just picked up the numbers. I picked up the intensity, and then whenever there was an opportunity, there was ruck pressure. So Mbe, let's go through the tries. And the one thing I have to say is that the French had to work really hard for their tries. It's not something that just it did come early, but they had to, certain things had to happen there, go their way for their tries for them to get the tries. So good aerial contests from France. Ball gets, and this is what I meant with Sacha not using check zone. You can see the way that he just flies into this tackle. He doesn't make the tackle, but Peter Steff comes in and finishes that. But they can't shift it, because after a contestable kick, you're very susceptible to wide play and wide attack. So they've cut that off. Jesse doing a great job again to cut them off on the outside. But interesting here is I think Sacha went to the wrong side, and that opened up the space at the back over there. Because Damian Willems is on this side, Sacha's on his way to this side, and Reinach's on his way to this side. So like I said, Jesse getting up, forcing them back in. Sacha's still on his way, and as you can see, Damian is also on this side. No one at the back. So after doing a really great job in forcing them back, we don't get that tackle. Good little dink in there, and the bounce is perfect. So we did well with the defense, cut them back in. Sacha probably should have gone back into that space. He didn't. They kicked a good kick. They got a good bounce, and they scored a good try. They ID'd that space, and they scored a good try. But I think Sacha goes back there, we probably deal with it in a much better way than we did.
It was one of the reasons why he was selected, to play in such a huge game and experience the pressures, make the mistakes that he needed to make, and not make them in 2 years' time when he's playing in the World Cup, isn't it?
Yeah, fair enough. And I also think, if you look at the tackle, I wonder if he didn't get knocked a bit. I wonder if he wasn't just...
I saw him sort of staggering back a bit. I saw that
that was a big hit. Like I said, no check zone, just flew in. You do everything he can to stop the ball there, not get the ball wide for them. And maybe that, because he's on the way there, surely he can see Damian over there and drop back. Yet he kept going, and it opened up the space there. But you're 100% right. That's where you learn. So from the maul, we get them down, advantage to them. Now, this is probably one of the most difficult places to defend at the moment, especially against teams with a great pressure skill set. You can see that Damien's holding his width for that cross kick and for anything wide. So we need these 5 players on the inside to stop the ball and not get it wide, and for France not to get it wide. So there's good line speed, but because of Bielbarri's positioning, Arendse can't shift off. He can't go wide. He has to go there, and this is a great pass. And I think the timing of this pass was phenomenal. But again, Envia, we nearly saved that. Look at Sacha. Look at Reinach. That's just what this jersey means to them. You know, that's from another angle. You can see that these guys are on their way. Damien probably can't leave him. Great pass, but look at the chase, the commitment to try and save this try. And Reinach presses him into the the advertising boards there.
Yeah, there was a lot of noise made about that tackle where Reinach pushed him into the boards. I mean, really, it's just another tackle. Anyway,
I think it's one you can get away with. There's a lot of momentum going into that, and you know,
nothing malicious, I don't think.
No, I think it's not one that you can actually get into trouble for. I mean, you get into trouble these days for things players just say.
For breathing, yeah.
No evidence needed. So, yeah, I think we'll be fine there. So the last thing we'll talk about is the South African attack. And I like this little pick and go tactic because it actually congests that defense in the middle. Nice little reverse play. They played this one against France, but they didn't play Reinach. D'Alende at 9, and now it's a pick and go. Good, clean ball. Peter Steff takes the ball, and as you can see here, look at how congested that channel is now. And I think just as we go through this NBA, just have a look at the quality ball we get from these rucks. Now, the breakdown has been a problem for us in certain games this year. And in this one, you can see Reinach carrying, no threats, quick ball. Carry, no threats, quick ball. Quick ball. And then when they go back, the French are running with a one man at the back. They're working on that pendulum. It's a tripod pendulum, but the wings are getting involved, and the nine has to help as well. But a lot of the time, like this, you'll see that it's just the fullback at the back, and there is kick space in behind. And I like what Damien tried to do here. And I think if he gets that ball probably more behind Pinot, we've got more of an opportunity, but he gets tackled as he kicks and he pulls it back to Ramos. But what they've also created, and if we just go back to the close view, what they've also created was a 4-on-3. So with a box attack, there's definite plans on where they want to strike. So they want to use Reinach. If he doesn't get through, it's going to be a couple of forwards with D'Alende pick and going, congesting that midfield, and then looking for which side they want to play to. Once they decide, they've got a kick option and they've got attack options, and Damien takes that little kick option. And like I said, if he puts this ball anywhere near the touchline, Ramos doesn't get that clear release of pressure. On the next one, this was Reinach's try. So we get advantage. He gets rid of it. Now, in the top corner, you'll see there's the 4 lock of France. And what you'll see is he's directing their props to go to the ruck. So they've obviously got a policy that the 1 lock will go, the 1 lock will stay to keep the blind. Now, I don't like this policy personally because it does open up the threat exactly what Reinach takes then. So we've got on there, now we've got the 5 lock coming as the first pillar. Reinach looks, he sees the open side is fixed. And on the blind side, you've got 5, and now the 3 after the 4 lock has pushed him across. Reinach sees the opportunity, and that's probably one of our biggest threats at the moment, is our 9s at the rucks. The ruck defenders cannot move off. Our 9s are real threats at the rucks. And sees that opportunity, and this is a great finish. This is an absolute great finish and a great try.
André, before you continue, I just want to ask you quick. You mentioned earlier on pick and goes. I've heard it so many times. What exactly is a pick and go?
A pick and go is just someone taking the ball from the back of the ruck and he goes. So it's like a forward will take the ball and run into defenders on the side of the ruck, or like you saw Dialende running into the side of the ruck. And that's the French do that as well when they go into that overloading of the midfield to try and pull the defense in. And you'll see us regularly doing it off wide rucks, Esterhuizen, Creel. And what that does is it actually pulls in more defenders and traps them on that side, which brings that corner a lot more narrow and gives you an opportunity to open up that cross kick space or going around them with your plays.
Okay. I felt quite stupid for asking that question now.
And then this last clip, Envy, I think is just, this epitomizes the Springbok side in this game. This is how they played. This is why we weren't gonna lose this test. So firstly, this delivery is absolutely sublime. So one hand behind his back, Visa in motion over the advantage line. And again, have a look at the ruck speed. Clean ball, passed, clean ball, quick. And because of this same side play, the French were just folding. There was no system. They were just worried about that same side attack. And you'll see Sacha and Mani with a late sweep back because of that space that they created on that blind. So clean ball, there they go. You can see the space. We've trapped them on this side. They're worried about these same side plays. And that's the space that Sacha inevitably goes through there. And like I said, with Mani, he does the right thing. Just play Sacha off his hip. And that's the key. That ball in 2 hands. He wasn't running with it tucked under his arm. He was keeping it in 2 hands. Luku couldn't get to him there. He had to stay alive. And for some reason, it looks like Intermac's actually given up. It looks like he's given up, which is quite strange.
Yes. He didn't even try. Sure.
Yeah, so it's quite strange. It looked like he gave up on that one.
Okay, André, thanks for that masterclass in how good the Springboks are. I enjoyed it, I must be honest. I love seeing these little things and I love understanding it a bit better. I've got many questions, but I'm not going to ask them because, I feel like I'm on the back foot now for my stupid questions. I'm going to ask you next time.
It's never a stupid question. I think there's a lot of people that this game is of such a sort that all of us are learning every single day. That's the beauty of it.
I just like hearing you talk the language, speak the language, and for me to understand it. Pillar and post. That's the other thing I wanted to ask you, and I was a bit shy of asking, but I'm going to ask you anyway. What's a pillar and post?
Teams have got different names for that, but pillar and post is just your one and two at the ruck. It's the first defender, second defender. They could call it guard, bodyguard, pillar, post. Name it 1, 2, 3 or ABC. It's just those first 2 guys. Now, those are the guys that I think our 9s are ensuring that those guys can't go anywhere. Because if you give Williams or Reinach a sniff, they're going to take it. And, it starts having a bit of a effect on your system later on with folding that slower, because those boys have got to check them first and then they can only go. So it's to the detriment of your system in some areas.
Okay, André, we promised in the beginning of the video we're going to talk about this team that Rusty selected for this game against Italy. Now, we've just seen it, so it's very raw. The one thing that stands out for me is there's no hooker on the bench. I mean, that's quite interesting. 2 locks on the bench. André Estres and Koch, both hybrids, are on the bench. So what is this now? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4-2-2 bench. 4 forwards, 2 hybrids, and 2 backs.
You be the first one to actually label it like that, and you should use that.
No, I'm not the first one. I've seen people use it before, but I mean, geez. Who's going to hook? Is Grobler going to play 80 minutes, do you think? What's going to happen?
Yeah, that's a great question. And with Rusty, you never know. I mean, I've seen clips where Wilco has been on his knees practicing his throws. You mentioned Marco van Staden probably moving to hooker with that neck or lack of neck. He's probably got the right build for it. That's a really interesting one, and you'll probably find out because they have to give through the names of the guys that can cover the front row before the game anyway.
Of course, that's a rule. I forgot about that. Yeah, that's
you
right.
have to give those numbers through. So, interesting team. I hope we don't underestimate Italy, because they've beaten Australia convincingly. Australia's beaten us in this year, and I know you can't just go like that, but their confidence are up. I think they're still a bit gutful for us about that kickoff that we did to get to the scrum.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah,
I think Wasada is still a bit gnar about that one. But don't underestimate those boys. They play some good rugby.
The other thing that stands out for me is that midfield, Moody and Hooker. I mean, that's the first time we've seen that combination, but I'm quite excited about that.
I am excited about it, but I think it will take time to cement. All the good combinations obviously spent a bit of time together. So, their focus should purely be on getting the basics right for this game in terms of attack and defense, and the rest will come. But that's an exciting prospect to look forward to. And then also Edwin van der Merwe, I haven't seen him for a while, so.
Well, Harry just WhatsApped me and he said André Estres is going to play hooker. Now for his next trick.
Now for his next trick, yes.
Yeah. That's quite interesting. All right, André, thanks, man. I really appreciate you making time for us and all the effort you put into making these clips for us. It means such a lot to everybody. And every time I speak to you and I walk away from these things, I feel like I'm so much more educated. But every time I speak to you and then I realize how little I actually know. So thank you for making the time and teaching us and getting to understand this game better.
Your kind words are appreciated, but the time spent on these is always enjoyable. So thanks, Mbia.
This is the Out the Boks Rugby podcast, only on Megaphone Rugby.